The Big Game Hunter, and I am back today with another episode of Career Coach Office Hours. Friday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern, I spend some amount of time answering questions from job hunters that I haven't had a chance to get to during the week. And I'll just simply say I'm working with a new setup today, new computer, new camera. I feel small on camera today, and I got to figure out how to use a zoom function to pull myself larger on the camera. And let's just pull the laptop closer to myself. Job hunting doesn't have to be that hard, difficult, painful, or take as long as it does. It's just there's a different skill set to finding a job than doing a job. And for most of you, you're amateurs at job hunting. You may know how to do your work well, but the process of finding a job is more complicated. It's one of the reasons I coach people is in order to help you navigate the job search terrain more easily, because it really doesn't have to be that difficult, and I have far more experience at that than you. I can't do what you do professionally, but this is what I do, is I help people with job search, hiring more effectively, managing and leading, as well as resolving workplace issues. And my experience comes from my background in search. It comes from working with organizations to help them hire more effectively. It comes from my master's, where I worked with people to be more effective in the workplace. And you learn how to help people manage, because it's a leadership issue. And I've had some great leadership training over the course of years. So I've got a number of questions from people that came in during the week that I'm going to try and address today. And if it's a little quirky that I'm going back and forth, again, it's new computer, new setup, and I'm learning my way with this stuff. So question number one. In an Amazon interview, the interviewer asks, if you were given a choice to choose between an offer from Amazon and one from Walmart, which would you choose? So when I saw this question, I wanted to sit with it for a little bit, because you never want to be critical of another firm. And you want to speak positively about the one that you choose, which, since it's an Amazon interview, you want to give Amazon the kudos here. And let's work with the assumption that you're a technologist. Amazon is a technology stuff that uses that tech to sell things. Walmart, on the other hand, is a company that sells things and is kind of adding on technology as an afterthought. And thus what you're doing is praising the model that Amazon has that allows them to be very effective with their business. Nothing critical about Walmart there, but it's a positive statement about Amazon. Question number two. If you're a reference for a job candidate, or maybe a friend or a former colleague, do you alert them when you've been contacted by the potential employer? I think that's a nice thing to do, because what it does is it gives them an idea that the firm is following up, because that isn't always the case. And thus what you're able to let them know is the firm is proceeding and bringing this process to a successful conclusion. So I'm going to try moving a little closer. So yes, send them a quick text or an email that just says, hey, I heard from the firm that you gave me as a reference for. They spoke about a number of things with me. I gave you glowing results, and good luck with this one. And it just makes them feel good. Third question for today. Should I call HR after an interview? Now, one reason to do it, and I'm going to work with the assumption that you don't have a search firm or recruiter working with you. You want to give them some feedback. I met with the hiring manager. We spoke about a number of different things. I think the interview went very well. It was this one rough edge around fill in the blank, but I think I overcame the concern. They're not going to probably have any feedback for you if that's your reason for doing it, but it gives them a little bit of ammunition if there was a rough edge. She asked me a question about such and such, and I wasn't quite sure what they were going for, and I opted for this answer. It could have just as easily been that answer. If that's an area of concern, could you let them know that? And thus, you're able to deal with a situation that may have surfaced in the interview. But in terms of getting any sort of response, you're probably going to leave a voicemail, because no one ever gets through to anyone these days, right? And in leaving the voicemail, you provide a degree of detail. Don't go on for 10 minutes. No one's going to listen to that. Try and do this in 30 to 60 seconds tops, so that you're able to convey some flavor for them. And then you can conclude by, they told me that they'd be back to me by later in the week, Tuesday of next week, whatever it is. I hope to hear from you before then. Next question. If a hiring manager says she or he will get back to you by a certain time frame, but you haven't heard back by that time, is it safe to assume that you didn't get the job? No! One's got nothing to do with the other. I'll just simply say one of the reasons you don't hear back is because, well, hiring manager has more than one thing to do. Hiring manager has their job to do. They're focused on that primarily. They may have more people to interview. There may have been a cancellation. If you follow my advice on interviewing, one of the final questions you ask is, when might I hear from you about next steps? In this case, they said by the end of the week. So if I haven't heard from you by Monday, Tuesday, is it okay if I follow up with you? And that gives you permission to contact them. So don't hesitate to use that permission to take action and contact them. Don't assume you've been rejected. There's no reason to make that assumption. These are people who have lots of different things to do. And as a result, if you're not getting a response or haven't gotten a response, until you hear that you've been rejected, until they have not responded to 2 calls from you, you have not been rejected. After 2 calls, I don't chase people. I didn't do that when I did recruiting. I certainly wouldn't ask people to do that now. I might send a follow-up email that says, "Are you okay?" And that's the subject line. And the body would read, you indicated I would hear back from you by the end of the week. I understand people are busy, but I've called you twice and I haven't heard back. I just want to make sure you're okay. And that kind of guilts them into responding. It makes them feel guilty about their being discourteous. And normally they'll go, no, nothing like that. No, I'm okay. But, and then they give you the excuse, I was busy, we had one more person to talk to, whatever it is, but it brings you up to date and you flush them out. So don't ever hesitate to use that tactic. It does work very, very well. Let's see now for the next question. Oh, I love this one. I canceled an interview a day before a scheduled appointment, and the recruiter told me, I cut a meeting short so I could talk to you. We aren't interested in having you work here. How do I respond? Well, I notified you the day before. I left a voicemail for you. Or the person who messaged me might not be telling me the truth. So let me just try and deal with one scenario. They say the day before, and I cut a meeting short so I could talk to you, and we're not interested in hiring you. And you can politely say, I tried to notify you in advance and left a message for you, or sent you a text, or emailed you to let you know that I wasn't going to be keeping the appointment. I'm not sure why you didn't get it, but I left it for you at approximately 2:45 in the afternoon. That I had chosen not to pursue this opportunity. I'm sorry you didn't get the message, but I really did call. If you check your voicemail, check your email, you'll see I sent it to you. Now, if the person hasn't told me the truth and they did it the day of the appointment, I cut a meeting short so I could talk to you, suggest that they did it last minute, not the day before. So if it is last minute, I'll just simply say, don't say anything. You deserve to get that little rip. Learn a lesson from it about your effect on other people. And remember, this person is not going to work there for the next 20 years. They may not be interested personally in talking to you in the future, but use it as a lesson for how to properly interact with people so that you don't hurt them. You don't have a negative effect on them and have the consequence of that sort of action. Okay? When a software engine is number 6, I've got one more after this. When a software engineering manager reaches out to you on LinkedIn rather than a recruiter, does it mean you have a better chance of cracking the interview? No. But what you've done is save a step because you're actually getting to a or the decision maker, and they're capable of making their own choice to see whether or not you're qualified. So instead of having a filter there that's screening you, but doesn't really know the material, the software engineering manager is able to discern whether or not you are qualified to do this job, and thus it saves a bunch of time. So have you cut the line? No, you've saved some time and you have a real decision maker there. Final question for today. Let me just get it back up. Why do companies like to do web interviews with the interviewer's camera off? I wondered about that myself, and it could be, and there are many possible reasons, but they're all fantasy. They're just not in the mood to be seen. They haven't dressed well. They don't want to look unprofessional on camera. It also gives them a chance to do this almost like it's a phone interview where they're not influenced or you're not influenced by their appearance. I'm starting to say they're not influenced, but they can see you. And thus, at least on Zoom they can see you and they can be influenced by your appearance. But for you, it's, how do you carry yourself when there's a little bit of a hiccup? I know I was doing a pre-interview for a podcast yesterday, and the person who I was speaking with had their camera off. So within 15 seconds, I said, by the way, your camera's off. Are you doing that intentionally? He said, yeah, it's just, and he made some excuse. And I just took it as being he wanted to observe me and my manner. And that's the way it is, I think, for a lot of firms. They just want to observe without themselves being observed and judged. And I was dealing with someone who had an English accent, more from Liverpool than London. I found it a little hard to understand, so at times I politely say, I just want to make sure I heard your question correctly. I heard it as this. Is that what you intended? And it's a little harder because when you can see someone, there's a lip sync to it. But do you get nervous? Do you become uncomfortable? How do you carry yourself in situations that are not perfect? I don't think it's particularly mature on their part. I think it's a sense of laziness that allows them to believe that they can get away with that. Consider it a form of, I really don't care, and file that away. Now, it's possible that this person is a screener, as it was with me yesterday, and thus they're not important. And thus don't hold it against the firm and the opportunity just because this person had their camera off. Now, I'll just say, for you as a job hunter, there's a lot of information I have at my website, which is thebiggamehunter.us. If you go there and go to the blog has thousands of posts there that you can watch, listen to, or read that will help you find work more quickly. In addition, I have courses available through the site that you can watch on different platforms. Um, in addition, uh, you can schedule time for a free discovery call or schedule time for coaching with me. I'd love to help. Connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the big game hunter. Uh, my networks tend to be a lot larger than yours, and you'll get notified when I release new information. Hope you have a terrific day, and most importantly, be great. Take care.